Ah, how's it going? How's the microphone level? What's up? Christopher KO is first. Easy coming in second. I Skipper third. Jeff Verse fourth. The Drawing Maniac in fifth. Sam Jones in sixth place. And Natsu coming in at seventh. What's up, buddies? I hope John at eighth. Okay, we're doing good. We're doing good. So I got a couple topics from you guys, and I think we'll do a topic-based stream today. Yeah, WDC Studios catching the live stream, dude. I know, kind of a rare occurrence. Well, first of all, it's cold, so I'll try not to sniff into the microphone. But it is holiday break at Riot Studio, so I have a few days off, which is kind of fun. So I decided to use my time to maybe get a stream in, and I also have some other fun chores around the house, like building fences and that type of thing. Also working on the studio, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. But I decided, what better to start the break with other than going back to work and streaming for you guys and hanging out, which is basically what I love to do anyway. I love Mondays, so well, I guess when you dig concept art, then every day is not really working. I mean, every day, some days can be tough, but it's not really work. All right, sip of coffee. How are you guys doing? Let's see. Oh, Vetrix is in. Good, dude. You made it. Cheerful's in. And okay, so Drawing Maniac's asking me why is it always cold where I'm at? Technically, we're in California, and it's not really that cold. So cold to me is maybe, I think it's 59 outside. It might be 40, 49. I know it was 59 in the house with no heater on last night. So in my office right here, the heating duct doesn't flow from the heater to this room. So it's probably 59 right here. So that's why I'm cold. Let's see. Okay. Cheerful. It's like -7 in Sweden. And it's literally snow everywhere in Sweden. That's why I am reluctant to say the actual temperature here when I'm cold. It's cold. I'm wearing shorts. You guys can't see them, but I am wearing shorts and no shoes, and my little tootsies are chilled. So that's not really, let's be honest. Cold when you're in California is, I think, substantially different than cold when you're in Sweden. That's some legit cold when you go out and there's ice on your beard and your eyebrows and whatnot. Speaking of which, I didn't shave because it's holiday, so sorry about the scruff, but can't just get right into all that type of stuff when you're actually trying to take a break. Oh, we got sofa string. Oh, great. Sofa Stranglers from Norway. That's okay. So if your name is Sofa Strangler, is it really Sofa? It is. Okay, so Sofa Strangler, fantastic name. Glad you're in Norway. Not my next door neighbor. That's crazy, dude. -16 in Paris right now. John Torres, -16 in Paris. I can't, yeah, okay. And that's Celsius, so that's about, what's that, 10 Fahrenheit? I feel like that's way too cold. That's just too cold. That's way too, there's probably snow and ice and everything. Literally, when it gets cold here, like a chance for real ice. Since I've lived here 20 years, it snowed once. if we get a chance for real ice, you got to go outside and put blankets over your plants and stuff so they don't freeze. And we're so unprepared for actual coldness here in California that we have to wrap our pipes up on those super cold days, or they end up freezing and cracking. So that's probably something that you guys already have figured out. So I would like a little bit of snow around Christmas, but it does seem like I would like only a few days, not an entire full month or two of snow. Easterly Art, Michigan here, plenty of snow here as well, right? Topic 1 is perfect since I'm working on Mega Man piece today. All right, so here we go. You guys ready? So I thought it was kind of cool. I was really stoked when we asked questions on Discord, and then you guys gave questions, and they were, what's up, Collie D? I love your content. Appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. It was cool that you guys gave those questions, because I really felt like it was a fantastic topics, and there were things that relate to you. Sometimes I have an idea of what I think is the most important issues for you, but that's from my perspective already being in the studio. So I know you guys have probably different problems. Well, you definitely have different problems than I have, but I don't necessarily feel like I always have my finger on the pulse of exactly the problem you're having today. So it was cool. I asked Jeff one of his topics, and one of his ideas was talk about fan art versus originality. So that's the first topic we're going to talk about. And I understand we're going to have to wind up to this one. So it's a tough problem. Me personally, I've drawn fan art twice in my career. And I've drawn, let's see, I've drawn for DayZ, the game, once, and that was probably last year, just to do it for fun. And it wasn't to look for a job. And then I've drawn like little Star Wars inspired things, like put a TIE fighter in with my environment. And that's probably the closest I've ever gone to fan art. But I never emulated a piece or a character like fully. You know, if I love Spider-Man, I would draw a guy with spider abilities, and I would kind of do my own flavor of it. I think I probably try to draw stuff in the inspirational format of Akira, because I loved Akira when I first saw it. But I've never drawn like straight out fan art. And my belief, this is going to change a little bit, so don't feel bad. My belief is I don't like fan art. Like, to me, I'm like, I don't get it, because you're basically, as a concept artist, you're taking someone else's idea and then you're kind of just polishing it, potentially. There is a lesson in there. There's a big lesson in that a lot of the design process has been thought out. And so that polish situation, when you have the freedom to just polish a drawing because you already understand what the shape of something is, or you're trying to learn something or enhance something, like if I wanted to enhance Tetsuo's motorcycle from Akira, I could draw it and then kind of like try to detail it out and get a new perspective of the motorcycle that people haven't seen. So maybe it looks more real, or has different textures, or I change the color scheme on it, or this Blade Runner car, Decker's car. But I kind of feel like, personally, that I never wanted to draw someone else's idea at all, ever. And that's kind of a theme for me anyway. I have a hard time. I like the design process. The illustration process is tougher for me. And I imagine, that resonates with some of you guys, but that doesn't mean it's incorrect. Just because I don't like it, and I probably judge less for it than other people would, meaning that if I was an art director and I saw a fan art, I would probably be like, I mean, it's not for me, but I can appreciate it. I think there are some good things about doing fan art. One is when you're getting your foothold and you're just starting in the industry. I think fan art is a good way to release your mind of some problems. Maybe you're doing a repaint of some Appleseed or something, because I love the robots in that. Maybe you're doing a repaint of that, and you're freed up a little bit of these design problems so that you can concentrate on lighting and perspective. I think it's kind of nice to be able to relax parts of your brain and really work on other parts of your brain, the muscles in your brain, and develop those. And sometimes you just can't develop every single muscle at the same time, meaning you can't develop your design muscle, your sketch muscle, your rendering muscle, your all your building blocks, your fundamentals, and your composition all at the same time. You kind of have to work in layers. So I see, for someone getting into it, that fan art is probably a good way to be inspired, and especially if you love the topic, to like carry through the tough moment. There's always like the tough moment in your sketch where you realize, ooh, this is gonna be bad. But if like, yeah, I'm doing Grumpy Cat fan art. I can see Grumpy Cat over here on the other monitor, and I'm going to paint towards it, that there's this rough patch of drawing where you're like, this is terrible, but you have faith that it's going to look good if you just detail out that little bit. I believe that's the strength in fan art. The second thing is, I am not necessarily, as a person who judges people to join a studio, at times, not currently, but in my past, I didn't put a lot of weight in fan art. But I do know that a lot of studios, and Riot included and Blizzard included, I think they do have a strong appreciation for fan art, because the studios that I worked at previously were kind of like designer-centric studios, or engine production, I don't know, what do I want to call this? They weren't really player-centric studios, meaning you didn't have a lot of cycling with the players to discover what your content was going to be. They basically, like at Oddworld, we kind of Fahrenheit, right? Nice tracksuit, dude. I love Adidas Classic. It's a little chilly, but it's working for me right now. So at Oddworld, we cared about one person's vision and then executing that vision. But at Riot, they really care about the players, and same at Blizzard. They really care about the players' opinions. So they run specific contests or specific moments when they actually look at players' fan art. So when I say I don't like player fan art that often, I think the smart move for studios is to have a strong appreciation for player fan art, because there's a couple of cool things about it. Is that if you already have the look of the studio down, if you were going to apply at Riot, and then you had some fan art that was, here's Ash, and this is my take of Ash in a different scenario. She's maybe in Bilgewater or something, and you execute that to a really well done degree, then that appreciation amongst the artists in the studio is going to have a lot of penetration, because they're going to know you already understand the look. So when I say I don't like it, that doesn't mean that it's bad at all. It actually, I think there's some cases where fan art for some studios is a super smart move, and I think it can be well rewarded. I would say, though, when you're thinking about choosing some fan art to do, that if you do have a favorite studio, think about how you might fit in one of those studios. Meaning, gross. Meaning that if you were going to do a Pac-Man fan art and there's no new Pac-Man game on the horizon for the next 40 years, then your fan art effort is maybe going to fall on deaf ears. So you should point that fan art effort to an actual project that you think could potentially happen at a studio that is potentially going to last a long time, so that you could get some legs out of it. So to me, like, doing fan art of World of Warcraft would be a pretty slick move, because, or let's say you did Tracer, or you did some Overwatch. That'd be a smart move, because I have a feeling those IPs will be around for a long time. If you're going to do fan art of flash in the pan type item, or something super obscure that didn't really have a lot of a wide appeal, then maybe your time is better spent just doing your own original ideas. So I think that's like the fan art discussion in a nutshell. Let me go through some of these comments. Ooh, -1 in Munich, Jamie Lawrence. Oof, that sounds terrible. That just sounds... Cheerful Johnsky. Okay, so Cheerful is saying he digs Mega Man, and I think Mega Man's a cool thing. So there is some, you can get some credibility. There's also there's one thing that Jeff brought up, which was interesting to me too, is that if you, let's say you do a wide appeal character, and it is a way to hack, in my opinion, hack ArtStation, because if you get a lot of likes because you did Mega Man and everyone digs Mega Man, or you did Mega Man woman and on the beach in a bikini or something like that, then you're like, okay, you're hitting like all the notes that will make every 15 to 17-year-old kid like hit like and dig it and share it, especially as well executed. Then you are on a rocket to the front page of ArtStation. That's super cool. It's a little bit of a hack, because it's not your own idea, but it is kind of like you're using a set of levers at your disposal to get exposure, which can be great. But then, do you get known as the person who does the bikini Mega Man painting versus the person with their great own ideas? So it's kind of like, you have to judge for yourself. Are you putting out empty design calories, or are you putting out like nutritious design calories for people's brains? And that's kind of a weird way to put it, but it is. It's like, are they puff pieces, or are they really smart pieces that are gonna speak to people, speak to other designers who are looking for you? So it's kind of like you see it on YouTube too, where the drama alert stations and stuff, the Logan Paul, Jake Paul drama, like Rice Gov, it's like, oh my God, we have to watch, and I watch it, but it is a lot of it can be, it's kind of a good way of getting on top of the algorithm and getting a lot of exposure, creating drama with a bunch of people, but it's not necessarily like great new content. For those guys, their end result they want to get are basically views. Yeah, you want to get views on your profile and your ArtStation profile, but your end result is trying to get into a studio, hopefully. So where they're doing a great job because they're getting views and that's their result. But when you jump into a big studio, it doesn't matter how many views you have on ArtStation. It just matters how good of a painter you are and how you can get your designs through for the production of the game. So that's weird. Someone's knocking on my door. I don't like that. Who do you suppose that is? But let me go through a few of these comments. I don't care for fan art, but it's cool if someone else adds an original IP, like more of an adaptation rather than a copy. Sofa Stranger. I agree with that. I feel like a new take on something can show your skill on your design sensibility, your lighting, your creative problem solving. So you do want to highlight that more than just rendering. But if you do want to be an illustrator, definitely become an illustrator. There's nothing wrong with being able to draw the perfect drawing of whatever you want and spending as much time as possible on it. But then you need to gauge whether you like making the illustration part or you like the design part. For me personally, I kind of like the design over the illustration. Let's move on to the next topic, right? Running a business. So who do you think knocked on my door? Can you guys hear that? Hold on. This is creeping me out. Dude, if I get swatted right now. Shorts. Awkward. Don't be dead. Don't dead. No, seriously, that was like the loudest knock I've ever heard. Odd, but I wasn't swatted, so that was good. Come on. So, where were we? I've never come back, right? Oh, someone got a letter, right? The struggle I have is a Gundam hip hop guy while I struggle to promote my original comic book work. Whoa! I want to see Gundam hip hop guy. Studio Luno, please bring back videos when you can, Mr. Brown. I watch and rewatch your videos. Okay. Let me address that real quick. Replaced with alien, right? Did you guys see my shorts? By the way, I wasn't lying. Okay, so on the videos, I definitely have to hit the videos, so I'm super sorry about that. I do apologize. And it's I don't know. I have excuses, but I hate excuses. So there really nothing is worth telling you any excuse other than I just want it to be really good, and I don't want it to hold back. I like being kind of being able to be a little real with you guys, and I feel like I just have to. They have some classes at my work that I'm supposed to be a part of just to make sure that I know what policy is. I just don't know all the policies of my work, so I kind of don't want to jump out with something crazy by accident, that offends someone or something. I just want to make sure that I have everyone's best interests in mind when I do make one. And the other thing is I have like the one that you saw where I drew on top of the video, I have another drawing done that I really like, and so I don't want to put a video under it that is crappy. So I feel like the next one has to be really good. So what are you going to do? Basically what you're going to do is sit and wait till you get a really great idea and do it. So as soon as that happens, I'll do it. Right? Okay, so we were at running a business. Oh, and I am an alien now. So, oh, no. Sam Jones Collins just asked, have you seen the new Star Wars yet? Ooh, no, I haven't. I actually haven't, and I don't know if I want to see it in a theater, not gonna lie, because my TV here and my sound system here is better than the local theater, so I'm kind of like, maybe I'll just watch it at home, right? So running a business, I think this is an important skill, and it's totally 100% underestimated at art school. And when you're at art school, they're going to teach you how to draw, or teach you how to put together a portfolio, or when you're doing online tutorials, you always hear how to paint better, or better perspective, or fundamentals, and how to put your portfolio together. But the real key is, one of the real keys, maybe 50% of the key, is having your business sensibility down. What that means is the ability to write invoices, to project costs, to do estimates that are right, to do taxes, to get your business license, your insurance, be a freelancer. And I incorporated personally when I was freelancing, and it was a really good move. You end up getting more write-offs when you incorporate, but I guess my point is that the way things are evolving, I'm not so certain that the huge studio is going to be the way of the future. I think really the small pods of contributors are going to be the future, and as software gets easier to use, it won't require a team of 70 people to make a new game or a new well, maybe to make a movie. But even on YouTube, there's some really great content that's just a few people and a guy who can do some CG and animation. So for you guys, I really think that it's going to be a small effort. It's going to be a cottage effort. You're going to have this remote capability. You're going to be kind of like how I am now, where you're going to have your home office or studio or your live-in studio, and then you're going to have a great connection. You're going to have hookups like cameras and microphones and whatever, and then you're going to be able to invoice, get jobs, network everything live from your own studio. And that's going to include invoicing, having a producer, sending out letters, hustling up new work, keeping your network up to date. And I think that's nothing that's ever been covered at art school, at least when I went. When I went to art school, they didn't cover any. I think we learned how to write a cover letter, maybe, and it was like a couple week course in how to write a cover letter, put your portfolio together, and whatever. But there was nothing about finances for a small business or where to get insurance. So like you need to get liability insurance. And what that is just in case some tragic thing happens to your studio, that you're not totally broke and totally lost. Or what if you accidentally leak a client's secret image, and that image ends up tanking a project or changing the course of a project, and the client holds you responsible and says, hey, you cost us $200,000 because we had to delay our project because you released some stuff accidentally. That's the type of thing that you have to consider that no one's teaching you. So that's going to be like a whole nother video. But I think this is kind of where the next topic comes in. It's like, should the millennials be thinking about pooping their pants right now? And if you are thinking old style, like if you're thinking brick and mortar style, where you can't just move wherever you want and keep remote, I think, yeah, you should poop your pants. If you think you're going to go buy an office building and start a concept art studio with 20 people in it, yeah, go ahead and poop your pants, because I think that's fairly impractical and probably not even possible. But if you think about it now, if you're getting your domains, if you're on every social media platform right now, releasing little bits and starting your network right now. So like on Discord right now, that's why I have a Discord, is because look how much networking we've been able to do. Fortunately, my goal for this is like, hey, to help all you guys out. So we have, a couple hundred people live all day long, and there's a cool discussion going on. But imagine if you're a certain vendor for video games. Thanks for the subscribe, appreciate it. Imagine if you're a certain vendor and you do a certain type of VFX or something like that for the video game industry, that you have a Discord on your VFX channel, that you have a Musical.ly, you have every like little weird thing, or you have your little angles. And I think those are skill sets that millennials are specifically geared for, that you guys actually have your fingers on the pulse of that ability, where someone, I feel like I have kind of the pulse, but I'm also acutely aware of what's going on because I hang out with you guys. But for the most part, my peers, they're not into it. They're not into Twitch. They're not into streaming that much. They're not into the latest platforms. You guys have that skill. So you guys need to build your studios in a virtual space that it can look just as cool as EA or Massive Black or any other thing. You don't need a big brick building to get your work done. You guys already know that. So to me, it's super exciting if you guys take the leap into learning about small business and then you shoot into your own little concept art studio. And by your own studio, to me, that's just like freelancing a little bit for people until you get a full-time gig. But you still have to market it yourself with a domain and a website and all the peripherals that look like a little studio. And you'll have such an edge. And when things change, which they're going to change and they're going to evolve super quickly, you'll be able to pivot your entire operation in your studio, because it's going to be more of a cloud-based studio. You'll be able to pivot and react to whatever the changing mood is, or the trend, or whether people want to see, bikini Metro Man or whatever. You guys are specifically tooled for it. So tool yourselves for that. Like, understand all those pieces. The one thing is, like, when I meet a millennial person, I don't even know when I say millennial, I just mean younger than me. When I meet someone younger than me and I go, hey, do you have a Twitch account? And they're like, oh, what's that? I'm like, what the hell? Where are you from? Like, we're in 2015 already, and they are not even talking about stuff that was popular in 2013, right? Well, by 15, I mean 17. And by 17, it's going to be 18. And it's going to be 2020. So by 2020, what the hell are you guys going to have? It doesn't matter what you look like or where you're at. You don't need brick. You don't need a brick old wall. Like this studio right here. I know it looks fantastically fancy, but you don't see any, producers in here or other people in here. This is between just you and I. This is pretty much a guest room with a desk in it and a couple of monitors. And, maybe I'm going to switch this bed out for a couch, but it's kind of handy to have a bed in your studio, especially when you have guests over. So what are you going to do? But that's exactly what you can do, right? And it doesn't cost anything. It's that old mentality that I have to have a glass building with 20 people sitting at a desk. That's just someone's ego talking, that they have to actually look at the face of the other person in front of them. Like, I hired you, so you have to sit next to me on this other desk, and I can stare at you all day and make sure you do your work. If the person doesn't do their work, then just get rid of them. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if you could do 6 hours of work in 30 minutes, and that 6 hours of work is worth 6 hours to my studio. Well, I have a feeling you could just, to me personally, if I own the studio, I'd be like, okay, good on you. That's not, great job. If you don't do any work and you stayed in the office for 20 hours a day, but you don't get anything done, or anything you do is not worth it, then you're no good and you can't stay. So that's kind of a bummer thing, but hey, but that tool, the tooling for you guys to be able to pivot, that's why I don't think you guys have to poop your pants. I think young people should poop their pants if their goal is to like spend a ton of money on some real estate, and they think that they have to get things done with a bunch of brick and mortar around them, or they think they need a certain type of car, a certain type of all this stuff is so wasteful to me. A huge studio, it's super cool, believe me. It's very cool when I head into work and they have a ton of people and there's a huge space. But I think that's what happens when you're the top 1-2% of studios. All the rest of them, the people that they hire, they have basically like a cloud-based. A lot of them have cloud-based studios, and they're very small. They're one person, 2 people maybe, like 1 person plus a producer. And that's kind of my hopes. My hopes are, and actually I'm totally positive that when if you watch mainstream media and they downplay, like, I read another article. It was like the hopelessness of being a millennial and having an opportunity, you know. And I'm going, well, what are they by their standard an opportunity? Like, I don't think a millennial wants a glass building that's 100 stories tall, you know, with their name on the front of it. I think they would rather have a really nice laptop and like 2 Cintiqs. Like, man, can you imagine having 2 Cintiqs? I don't even know. Can you have 2 Cintiqs? That would be... I'm going to try that. I don't think like, young people right now are not caught up in having to, like... aliens might be coming. Although young people do buy into Supreme and the hype, so I don't know. Maybe that does make me feel sad. Okay, let me grab a couple of these questions here. Okay, so yeah, Full Sail online never covered it. No one covers, and that was from Jason Evers. No one covers small business operations. Even in medical school for doctors, no one covers small business operation. And honestly, I feel like it's evolving so quickly that even if you went to school, that their information would probably be a little too old for you. So I think it's going to be up to you guys to seek out small business operations using online format, you know, using like Gary Vee. Watch Gary Vee's channel, and he's basically like, he cuts right through everything and makes you think about staying in your lane and running your own small business. So, you know, check out Gary Vee, and then check out, get a tax guy. Honestly, a really good tax guy before you start your business, and by a tax person before you start your business, is super wise, because they can tell you the best practices for you to save money. And that's why I don't rent an office in a separate building, because this office here has tax benefits for my business. And this office here, being in my residence, also helps me with the expenses of my internet, because the internet is needed for my business. But there's a side benefit, is when I go home through the door, then hey, it's nice that my business gave the password of their internet to me and my family, so we can all use it too. See how that happens? So that's probably one of the more valuable things, is to hit that tax guy first. Let's see. Cheerful Johnson, are you calling yourself old, Rob? Dude, seriously, I do not. I feel not old. I distinctly feel not old. I look in the mirror and I'm like, what the hell happened? I don't know where all this gray hair came from. The games I like to play are cutting edge. The things I like to do are fairly cutting edge. I feel like a young person who is more sore and who needs more pairs of glasses, but also has a bigger budget. So yeah, I guess that's what old is to me. It's having a bigger budget and being more sore when you lift stuff like refrigerators. Jamie Lawrence said, it's a cool guest room studio. Okay, well, let's just keep the guest room very small type, because I really want it to be more of a studio than a guest room. And actually, I'm getting rid of this bed, but because of the holidays, it's going to be needed. But I'm getting rid of this bed, and I'm going to put in a couch that folds out into a bed, so that'll be good. But it's kind of like, okay, we'll first things first. Let's just get through the holidays, right? Okay, Benjamin. I know this isn't on topic, but could anyone answer? Appreciate it. I'm staying at home with my parents to get my life together. Is 8 hours of drawing a day too small? Okay, so what's interesting, the thing that caught caught my eye was Last from Mars said, I heard you should be drawing about 10 hours a day. And I literally draw from about 7 in the morning till 5 p.m. So I draw 10 hours. And when I draw, it's not literally like my hand on the paper. It's like I draw a little bit, I'll have to get reference, I'll have to compare, I might have a call or a meeting and I'll have to grab a lunch or something. But in general, I easily spend 10 hours a day in draw mode. When you're learning, I think that's something you have to work up to. At art school, we were in draw mode pretty much 10, probably more than that a day. I think you need to work up to that, because you need a solid goal and you need some inspiration and you need to be working towards something, working cognizantly towards something, meaning not just drawing to draw, but drawing to design something or become better at fundamentals or learning something or having a project that you're working on. I think if you can have really good draw hours, you can learn a ton in just a couple of hours, or you can spend all day drawing and not learn anything. But it's really the investment that you put in. So at times in my life, I have said, you have to draw 10 hours. And really, for a secret here with you guys on stream, I just say that at times to rule people out, in that if you're not capable of drawing 10 hours a day at all, then I don't believe you're cut out for the industry, but I don't believe that, well, let's phrase it the other way. People who love the industry, that have the desire to get into the industry, have zero problems drawing 10 hours a day. They love it. They would draw 10 hours a day probably anyway, other than if they had to have a different job or something. So if you're not into drawing that much in a day, or getting into draw mode somehow, like either going to a museum with a sketchbook or a cafe and sketching people or something like that, then you really have to think, like, is this where my passion lies? It's not good or bad. It's just that now you have to really find out where your passion is on that spectrum, so that you can point yourself to the thing that you really love doing. Doing it 10 hours a day or at least 8 hours a day doesn't feel like work. So to put a perspective around it, is I kind of can't wait to head into the office when I work. I mean, it's not like I'm saying open at the door, but I look forward to Monday more than I look forward to Sunday. And the reason being is that Monday always has like this brand new cellophane over it, like Monday's like has a wrapping around it of tasks and ideas, and my brain is fresh after the weekend, and it's like I can't wait to get in on Monday, because I'm gonna have new ideas, things I thought about in the shower, things I thought about off time, and so to me, Monday's cooler than the Sunday. Saturdays, if I had to like do a bunch of chores like raking leaves and stuff, Monday's better than Saturday too, but Saturdays are pretty good. So my advice is to you is, if you can't imagine yourself drawing 10 hours, if someone said, or like if someone handed you a sketchbook and say, hey, go draw the robot, I want you to go to a museum, look at all the art there, start sketching up little ideas for a robot, then come home, draw more of a robot for 5 more hours, and then get yourself lunch and dinner, play a little bit of a game, and then by midnight have a little bit of a robot drawn. If that doesn't sound fun, then I mean, that sounds like a freaking fantastic day to me. But if that doesn't sound fun to you, then that's where you would go, like, okay, where does my passion lie? And so you should point towards that passion. Because when you do find it, then 10 hours of doing whatever is like no big deal at all. Did I talk quick? Felt like I talked and I'm out of my breath already. Wow. Wait, Kenny Gordon said futon. That's not no futon. That's a bed with a regular old mattress. I had a futon in college though, not gonna lie. Dreaming Sophie, didn't he rephrase saying that you should be able to imagine? Yeah. Dreaming, that, see, on point comment right there. I did rephrase. And I just explained it. And I feel like I was a little bit of an asshole when I told people like, you should draw 10 hours, but that was when I was mean, Rob. Basically, it's like if you have no time and you said, and if I had 0 time and I said, hey, draw 10 hours. Well, okay, here's a perfect example. When I have no time and someone says, I really want to be mentored by you, like, could you help me out? I say, okay, draw 50 pages of cubes and then tell me when you're done. The reason why I do that is it is super shorthand where I can put up a fairly big hurdle, not impossible. Anyone can freaking do that. It's not an impossible wall or barrier. But it's a barrier that you better want to do that art before you can bug me about like how to fix whatever perspective or whatever, because I feel like there's a value in my time too. So if you can't invest in yourself to do 50 pages, then why would I invest in you? There are people on Discord that will draw 50 pages of cubes if I said like, hey, this would be great. They definitely do it, and they have done it. So, well, maybe 3 of them have done it, but it is shorthand for being able to rule out people by their passion levels. Because there's another thing is you want to be attracted to. If I do get into close proximity with one of you guys, like, hey, like there's a few people I help out. The ones that add energy to the discussion, who don't just take away ideas and kind of disappear, the ones that recirculate the energy, that go, hey, you said this small comment to me on YouTube and then I went and I drew this, like, check out the results. And I'm like, holy crap, that's pretty cool. That's how you engage someone. And so that's kind of like you put up that big old, a fairly glaring comment of like, yeah, you got to draw for 10 hours. And then we can talk. It's very wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi style. And now I understand why I thought Mr. Miyagi was an asshole when I first saw that movie, but now I understand. It's kind of like, yeah, don't bug me, kid, until you can actually prove that you can cut through all this stuff, right? Okay, so when you're a few months drawing maniac, it says this: when you're a few months in 10 hours a day drawing mode, and then you launch League of Legends again. All right. I played, it was Destiny 2. Here's what kind of happens when you're in 10-hour a day draw mode. Your wrists actually and your drawing muscles just start to wear out. They don't get totally worn out, but I start feeling it. Your tendons start to tighten up and the heat starts to build up. So you do have to take care. Make sure you get some padded stuff on your desk and you don't rest the wrong way. But literally, I would draw for 10 and then I would try to play games for 3 and 4. And at that point, you're like, okay, I got to kind of balance some of this stuff because it starts just being fairly hard to do. So don't kill yourself doing that type of stuff either, because you're in it for the long haul. You're not in it for the short term or a few months. You know, I understand the drive to like do everything, but should definitely temper that so that your well-being is in a way that can let you carry on what you want to do for longer. Let's see. Can you share a good concept art commission contract that you use with clients? Okay, Danny, and this is cool because it relates to the running a business. Danny asks, can you share a good concept art commission contract that you use with clients. I used to do that. In the beginning, I used to have these like long ass things that were like, if you, here's the contract. You agree to get 5 sketches, and I will give you 1 revision each, times 5. And if those revisions need to take less than 2 hours each, so that and then I'm trying to think this totally through. They had, and then I would kind of have all this like weird catches in the contract that were, and it wasn't a real contract. It was just a, like if you order paintings, you basically have to pay for them. And then if you cancel them, you still have to pay something for them. And then if you ask for too many changes, then you still have to pay even more for them. And I did that for like 4 months, and it was so awkward because no one in the industry does it that way. And they were all like, what? I don't understand what this is. Is this are you saying like we're not going to hire you and we are going to hire you? The truth is, this is how you should do your contracts. You should estimate the time that it's going to take you to do a painting. Then you should do then you should say, oh, that's 3 days. Then you should add, a rule of thumb is, if you think it's going to take you 3 days, that means bill 6 days. That's kind of a rule of thumb, but that's only to keep you out of trouble, and it could get you out of jobs, because doubling your days is kind of not necessarily the best way to go about things. But I tried to say, I'll send a letter of intent, basically, or what do you call it? So you're basically telling them what you think it's going to cost, an estimate, a work estimate. So you send them a work estimate, and you just say, I estimate that I'm going to spend 4 days to do one painting, and then I estimate we're going to have 1 day of revision. And so this project is going to be 5 days at this price per day, and the deliverables are going to be this image. So you have to list the cost, letter of intent, statement of work. It could be that. I call it a letter of intent or an estimate. It basically is an estimate. You look at like what a plumber puts together. That's basically it. You can totally get fancier. If your studio gets huge, you totally get fancier. But the thing is, they want to like rapid fire this stuff, and a lot of times it's like they want to hire you for 1 or 2 days. They don't want to send some long ass thing to their legal department because you were saying there's 10% of this and 20% of that. And if you cancel, then I get 50% of that. And if you ask for too many changes, then you have to pay for every single one of them. You basically just go, you get this painting, and it takes 2 days, and then it takes 1 day for revisions. And then if it's a bigger project, then you say, I'll work for you for a month. So 20 days, 20 work days, no less than 3 color paintings, no less than 20 black and white sketches, and no less than 100 thumbnails. And I used to do that with the thumbnails, but they don't even understand what a thumbnail is, like the producers. So you just say, I was like, you could get 3 paintings, 3 color sketches, and 100 thumbnails. And then they say like, what's a thumbnail? Can you give us an example of that? I'm like, okay. Then what's a sketch versus a painting? Can you give us an example of that? I'm like, oh, okay. So I try to get away from that stuff very quickly and try to say, do it by final image or delivering an image. Like I will deliver 6 images, and then you kind of like keep the definition loose, but they have an expectation like I'll deliver a matte painting, or I'll deliver images, or I'll deliver many images, and some will be color. Some will be loose. So you kind of give yourself some of that flexibility. There's nothing worse than sending over that whole like 3 pages of an agreement and all that, and then they look at it and they're just like, dude, this is you're a crazy person with all the detail and problems. They just want to sign you up for a day, do a painting, and get out of there. And it basically makes you look like a noob when you do something like that. The problem is, which all you people are thinking about right now, is, well, what if they screw you over, right? So if you don't have everything in a fairly ironclad contract, which you can't really, because it makes you look, well, you can, but it's not necessarily a positive. If you can't keep that rapid fire pace with just, hey, here's my estimate, boom, and then you just send your invoice, and that's it. So once the invoice needs to match the estimate, unless you've talked to someone specifically and said, so I say an estimate, it's going to take 2 days. I do the 2 days, I do the painting, I send the painting. Right with the painting, I send the invoice. Here's an invoice for this painting, and the grand total on the invoice is this. The invoice is super clear. And then it might say something like due on receipt, meaning when they get the invoice, they have to pay you. They can't wait too long. Traditionally, they wait 30 days though. So you send the painting. If you wait 3 or 4 days, then you send the invoice. Then that's going to be 30 days until you get paid. So you're talking like 33 days. And so you kind of want it to all be rapid fire and as quick as possible. That's kind of why you don't want to like doll it up too much with too much information. So could I give you a good example for a concept artist? One, I used to actually have them listed on my site, but basically look at something like a plumber's or a standard letter of intent or a standard estimate form, and then a standard invoice thing. And on your invoice, list the paintings one by one. And sometimes I'll take a screenshot of all the thumbnails so they can have those in their itemized sheet. And then I'll do that with the details. Like if you do it in Windows, you can show details and show the file size and the dates. So what I'll do is I'll say, here's a screenshot, and I'll put that in the invoice so that they'll see there's 20 little thumbnails like, oh, here's the date, here's when I did it, here's that, here's the progress. And usually that makes them feel really good because they can see like, oh, the iterative process. I see 50 different little iterations of a painting. So they're not necessarily like, man, we hired this guy 4 days and he just drew one thing. It's like, no, there was a lot of process that went into it. So that's my advice on that stuff, is try not to get too heavy-handed, and that's film style and pro game studio style. I think if you feel like you really need that contract with someone online, then that's like a super red flag that maybe you should or you should rethink whether you should work with that person, that they don't seem totally honest. Or if they're just contacting you through email, like some Gmail or a Hotmail account, and they're like, hey, I want to work with you for a month, and they have this grand freaking story about how great things will be, and they'll pay you whatever you want, just do all the work and then I'll pay you. Those ones, like they generally never work out for me. I've absolutely never been stiffed, which is very lucky on my part. But a lot of those are because you can just tell, like when someone writes you, if it's not pro, or they don't have a LinkedIn profile, or their domain is something weird, or it's like, can you help, but I don't have money, or our project. Those people, just avoid those ones, unless you're prepared to lose money, which that's a risk. What I would do if I kind of don't trust a person or am not super sure about their stability, I'll do a smaller cycle. So I won't let them get a month of my time. I'll let them get 2 or 3 days. Like, okay, I'll work 3 days this week, then I'll send you an invoice. And when you pay it and I cash the check, then we'll do 3 more days or whatever. And then if we get into that rhythm, then you can trust them, then you can do it. There was a very close, I had a close call that almost, and this is where the business side kind of comes in, where you guys got to get really slick. I had a close call with a client that I had worked for a year or two, honestly. And there's no reason for me to be suspect of their studio, but behind closed doors, they were going through a bankruptcy, and they were shutting down departments, but they didn't let anyone know. They didn't let any of the vendors know, or me, basically freelancers know. They didn't let many of the people in the studio know. So there's people like working at their desks who weren't necessarily going to get paid. And it was pretty shady. So I had worked a month, and then I sent an invoice. And so you realize, like, that's 4 weeks of work. It takes 30 days to get paid for some studios if they're slow. So I had 4 weeks of work done. I had worked 4 more weeks because I was waiting for that check to come. Then the check didn't show up, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe they forgot my invoice. So I wrote them saying, hey, you got my invoice? And they say, oh, yeah. And then I had already 8 weeks of labor done. So then I was thinking, like, man, I really should boost my other invoice in. So I stick that one in, and I was basically at 8, 9, 10 weeks of labor. And then I kind of get this feeling of like something's wrong. Usually they would have paid me a couple weeks ago. And then it turned out that I found out that they were going through bankruptcy. And then at that point, they were considering not paying me, and legally not paying me, because they're going through a bankruptcy. They were having to divide up all their assets and pay off people. And I wasn't necessarily like the highest on the list. When you're paying off people, you have to pay off your taxes first, and then you have to pay these other people. And so depending on where you are on the list, you might not get paid. So there was a summer where I had a ton of work that almost disappeared. And thankfully, because I had a bunch of friends there also working, that they had my back and they made sure I did get paid. But that was like a close call that I had, where I essentially could have lost my house, I could have lost my car, I could have lost my whole studio, because I had so much trust in this one studio, and then they weren't reciprocating on being trustworthy back. So when you're taking risks, just know that there are pitfalls, and always try to keep money in your bank account. You should keep 3 months of your burn rate in your bank account. I know that's hard. So what your burn rate is what's your rent, what's your car payment, all your bills, what's it cost for you to live for a month, and multiply that times 3 so that you have at least 3 months. I definitely try to do that, and sometimes it's hard, especially when you're freelancing. And in that case where I didn't get paid, that means you burn up 1 month, and next thing you know, you burnt 2, and then you have 1 month left, and you're looking for a new client because your client went bankrupt, and you have to have that savings. So that means keep your burn rate low. So don't buy a very expensive car right out the bat. Just get a little Honda. You know what? Get a cool outfit instead of a car, so you look cool, but you don't necessarily have to drive like you're super cool. And that's also playing into keep satellite style. You don't need to have rent on a giant office, because you can just stay in your place and go out from there. Keep your costs down for sure. All right, let's get some questions. Yeah, don't use an illustration contract for concept work. Yep, I kind of agree with that. I keep it just try to keep it simple. Jamie Lawrence, how do you set up your prices for art commissions? I'm often not sure how much to take for a day or an hour of work. Justin Adams said, I disagree that kill fees should be left out. I have I've never had to implement a kill fee. And what a kill fee is, if someone books you for your time and they promise they're going to pay you, and so then you don't look for other jobs. That kill fee is basically that they have to give you some money, and usually it can be half the money that you guys agreed on while you look for other work. Fortunately, I haven't been in a spot where I needed to do that, but I do understand other people have, and I think if it's a complicated system, the film industry, how the booking works. There's a hold, there's the booking, and there's a second hold. And I actually don't want to go through all that, but there's also the kill feed. And how it boils down is they can promise to hire you, and then if they mess up, then they have to pay because you're not getting other jobs. And what I honestly do is I never gave anyone my actual first hold. And that means I never told anyone they actually had me hired until I got a couple of offers, and then I would pick the best one, and then the best one included the best project and also the most reliable studio. And then I would say yes to that, so that I generally kept all my balls in the air until I saw the best one, and then I would lock that in. And so I never got myself in a spot without a kill fee. So you guys should look into that if you feel like I think if you're having to kill a bunch of stuff, that you need to work on finding better clients. It's which is easy to say, right? But most people won't kill you, that they'll at least shift you or do something else with your time and keep you busy. Hopefully. If they don't, then and I think that's a little more of a film thing. I think in games it's not so much that. Okay, Jeff, we actually got a little breakdown pin messages resource tab on Discord in case people can care to take a look at it. Oh, okay. So there we go. Go take a peek on that on Discord. Hi Rob, I'm a 3D modeler from called Kadeji. That's going to be an estimate on how to say your name. Super sorry. Hi Rob, I'm a 3D modeler and I sketch and build my own environment models. But I wanted to go to illustration school instead of CG school. What did I miss from illustration school? How can I transition? I think that's a good question. I don't think that's a bad idea though. The thing about 3D school is I kind of find that it's very specific on just the tool sets, and the tools evolve so quickly, right? So how does a 3D school keep up with the studio, right? And the tool sets are so fast that I always felt like if we were learning a software at Art Center, that by the time you graduated, it was already changed. So really, really what you needed was the fundamentals of illustration and lighting and design. That was the most important thing. And then you could just, when software came out, then you would just use that software and then you would learn it. So I kind of agree with that idea. I'm not sure what you have lost, but I would definitely work on your hand control as far as drawing and illustration. I would learn some perspective and color theory, and I would sketch a lot before I went into illustration school. But I think I would come up with your own hybrid way of doing things. That I do that too, where I do a lot of 3D modeling and paint over the top, or use it as an underlay to have perspective, or to do compositions and lighting. So you're in a good spot to do that. I think that's an interesting way to approach it. Okay, Metaforcer. Hey yo, Rom. What's up, dude? It's good to see you. Any tips on this is from Ferk Loveret. Ferk Loveret. Any tips on how to study and how much time for beginners should spend studying compared to pieces and projects? Now I'm curious what studying means. because at Art Center there was like no studying. It was all drawing. There was a little bit of like read up on some theory stuff, but basically anything you had to study for at Art Center, we like did the least amount of work possible. So it was like art history class. Yeah, we studied a little bit. We looked at the pictures, but we couldn't wait to get back on our sketchbooks. So I think a good approach is to develop your visual language, and I think studying can do that. In that, experience a bunch of things that you can pull from when you draw, so that you are drawing cool, innovative things. You learn about other cultures, you experience other cultures. So I almost say traveling is better than studying. Maybe that's blasphemy, but when I traveled to Malta or Italy, it was so amazing because the culture difference was fairly vast, but the quality of the art was so superior. And I think I got more out of those few weeks than I would have reading an art history book. So I would say live it and study life and use that to empower your drawings. Does that make sense? That makes sense. Okay, let's do that. Get that sweet Adidas tracksuit. That's right, Vectric. You know it. Boogie Airsoft. Hey, dude. Love these. We want more. I'm in. Well, okay. I'm in during break. As soon as things ramp up, when work is back, then we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And you guys can thank Jeff, dude, because Jeff is he behind the scenes. I have to thank Jeff too. That behind the scenes, Jeff is really proactive when thinking about the stream at times and giving me ideas and sharing your guys' thoughts with me. And when I see that, then I go, oh, this is a cool thing to talk about. So I literally was like, should I stream today? And then I wrote Jeff and I said, hey, you got any good topics? So half of these topics are things that we discovered we discussed in Discord before we got here or before I logged in, which is inspiring to talk about because I can just go through these and hit you guys. And then the chat is freaking awesome because your guys' questions are so good. Keegan Miller. Hey, Rob. This probably sounds basic, but how would you use a reference? Do you copy them and add it to your visual library, or do you use them while drawing and take bits and pieces? I think that you got to come up with your own answer on that. And I've seen it done poorly, and I've seen it done well. I feel like the best way to use reference is don't drag the reference into your file. There are some people that will like drag the reference in and work right over the top of it. And then at that point, I'm like, tracing and reference starts getting this weird middle, like this weird ground of potentially plagiarism-ish. The most successful illustrators that I've seen that use reference will have it in a book, or they'll definitely have it on the side or in a different monitor, and they'll look at, like for characters, for instance, they'll look at the musculature of, you know, maybe a sports an athlete or something, and then they'll be able to pull direct reference from a body type into a character. So I think that's the strongest way to do it, is use the reference as inspiration for your own solution on your own design. My favorite character artists they'll draw their own shapes and their own silhouettes, and then they'll just verify with reference that on, you know, if they draw a super huge muscular guy, they will have some reference up, and they'll just verify that their musculature and skeletal anatomy is correct. Things that I am starting to more steer away from, especially professionally, is like photo bashing, stuff like that. I kind of feel like there's a shorthand where it's cool for a thumbnail, but as far as a delivery on an illustration, then photo bash is like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. I suppose, but I really think it's a shortcut to doing the work. And it's also a flag that, does a person understand what they're missing out of the illustration? Like, what did the photo bash bring to the illustration versus as design elements versus what the person do themselves in the design element? So I would say collect as much ref and use as much ref as possible, but just keep it as a mental barrier between the ref and your actual image. And everyone uses it. Like, if someone says like, yeah, I just paint this out of my head. Yeah, I mean, maybe that one time, but there's a time in their life when they had to look at the cat to draw a cat. They didn't just have it burned into their memory and then just drew a perfect cat. You actually have to look at a cat and go like, oh man, I see how their ears articulate, or how their tails work, or how long their whiskers are compared to their other fur. That's all stuff that's observational, and especially high quality observation if you have the reference right there. So I think that's my overall, but that's probably a good topic down the road that we can really dip into. Let's see. Dark Evanescer. If someone were aiming to work for a company like Riot to do character concept art, what kind of self projects should they start working on? So if you were shooting, like, let's say I was trying to shoot for Blizzard, I would definitely work with their style in mind, trying to do my own ideas of their characters. So I would probably take they have super popular characters. I can't name any of them right off the top of my head right this second, but let's say I would Tracer. Let's say Tracer. So I would say, me personally, if I was trying to get a job at Blizzard on Overwatch, I would take Tracer and I would say, hey, I got an idea for a character. It's Tracer's sister or Tracer's brother. And then I would draw what Tracer's brother might look like. And the idea being that they would see that I could take something they had done and apply it to a new idea. And then I could bridge all those gaps. And it kind of falls into our fan art discussion, that I would make it my own version of something from their IP. And then I would probably try to do something better than they do. Like I would come up with my own opinion of where I might take some of their design. So if there was something about a character I didn't like, I would say, I would basically try to draw a better Tracer, but I wouldn't tell them I was doing that. I would just do it for myself. Like, these are cool characters. I'm going to draw one even better than that. That's what I would probably do mentally. I wouldn't go into a meeting though and say like, hey, I drew these better than you guys. I would just kind of go into the meeting and say, hey, these are cool. I like your thing. So, I think I would be a good fit because look at all this work that I did that kind of is aligned with the work you guys did, and it would be a very seamless entrance for me. That's what I would personally do. 70 people, Jeff Verse. Congratulations to us, everybody. 70 people watching. That's our record viewers. Whew, don't you feel good? Is it the tracksuit? It must be the tracksuit, or it could be the random disappearance because of freaking door knocking weirdos, which they substituted me with an alien. So it's not even the real me. Sorry about that, buddies. Bob and Weave. Seems like there are more opportunities for environment designers. Is that true? Everybody wants to do characters, it seems like. That's 100%. We went over that in the last stream. That's 100% true. Not just... and my theory on that is that character design is more player forward, and people can think of Tracer and go like, God, Tracer's so cool, right? But can you actually think about the temple on the 4th map that has the well, that has a few trees and a really cool shaft of light that comes through it? It's like, maybe, but that's not a player forward piece of art. Also in environments, there's just a sheer huge, vast amount of pieces to design and individual props that go with that, and lighting solutions and composition solutions. So there's just a lot more work to do. So there's a lot more people that get hired for that. But the character art is, because those end up in marketing on the front page and they're the center of the composition, they end up being the kind of the more hype art. And they also, I think they become popular as people just want to become concept artists. That's one of the things that they're drawn to first. Me personally, I'm totally drawn to environments. I could see a character I like, but I'm always more looking at the environments, like how deep is it? Like, does it establish the mood? How's the lighting? All that stuff. That's what really moves me. Characters can move me, but I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, I like it. They're freaking awesome, but that's not what I do. So, whatever. So I think you just have to seek inside yourself. I think there's more competition as a character artist, and depending on your skill set, it could be harder. For me, drawing a character is much harder than drawing like a full scene of environment and all the lighting and all the composition and perspectives and camera angles. But that's just because I do it all the time, that it's familiar to me. I suppose if I drew characters, then potentially environments would be hard. A lot of the character guys don't draw environments. Most of them that really end up in the high end don't care to draw environments, or just don't draw environments well, so they avoid it. But that's kind of you kind of have a little split there. So I would just say, where your passion lies, just go for that, for sure. The shiznay. Would you say, as someone trying to make their portfolio, should they photo texture or should they rely more on painting those textures? Currently, I would say try to paint your textures. I think that's, it depends on who you're submitting to, but currently I would say try to paint them, or at least blend them so well that they can't be noticed as a texture. I think GoodBrush does that very well. I could spot that there's a lot of photo reference in his stuff at times, but he blends it really well, so it doesn't pull your eye out of looking into the scene. I've seen Fang use some photo texture, and he does it really well. They're not the design solution. They're just a little texture in the scene that helps out. And then you paint over the top, and it gets very incorporated, and it doesn't feel awkward. But if your photo textures look like they're your solutions for your textures, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because pretty much anyone could do that. And especially now with how easy some of the tool sets are, even in Photoshop, you can wrap textures around basic shapes, and it's not even a 3D package, and you could render it and even light it in Photoshop. So I kind of feel like, my personal opinion is, if you do, make sure they're blended, that people can't tell. And if you don't, then just make really killer painted textures on your own. And you can also, something that you can do is, if you like using, what I've done is paint my own photo textures, if you will. So I'll paint the texture flat and like boards or wood or rock, and then I'll skew it into place like a photo texture gets skewed into place, so that it retains the perspective that I want. And that's a pretty good middle ground, so that you have some of the trickery of photo texture placement, but then you don't have the burden of like, oh man, every time you zoom in, something looks more sharp than the stuff next to it. And then it just looks like, it's like a so-so way of getting things done. It's fairly easy. But if it is for like rapid viz or something, where you're just like, these are for thumbnails or for really rough sketches, or I'm just trying to get stuff done really quickly, you could take photos of buildings or New York and just paint over the top of it and go, look how this 20-minute sketch of this new amazing futuristic skyscraper would look in the New York skyline. then at that point I think it's appropriate. But as final piece, I wouldn't do it, not right now. And I struggled with that because I used a ton of photos textures, and I basically the last 5, I was using them a long time ago when the people didn't necessarily weren't keen to seeing them so easily. If you use enough blend modes and you blurred and you median and you threw an unsharpened mask and you do some brush on it, it blended in pretty good. But now everyone's super keen on spotting like photoreal textures in the middle of some painting, right? And it's also a little bit of my matte painting background pulls that in instinctually. So I've worked away from that almost 100% now. I'm really trying not to do it. So I leave it up to you, whatever helps you the most. I think as a quick fix early on, if you're feeling terrible about a painting, throw something in with an overlay and then just to see it and then go, oh, this is what I like about it, and then maybe paint over the top of that enough to where it disappears. Maybe that's pretty good, but I'll leave it up to you. Keegan Miller, do art colleges generally care about varsity sports when looking at applications? At Art Center, they like to know that you finish a project. That was one of their things. So I would say there is something in sports or clubs or anything that basically you can take something from the beginning, middle to the end and complete it, because a lot of art is intrinsic motivation, and you can't necessarily, it's like intangible, like how hard you're going to sketch or how much of your brain you're going to use while you sketch. If you show that you can, as a person, start, oh, look at that, another subscriber, appreciate that. If you show as a person that you can do beginning, middle, and end of something, they do appreciate that. Well, could that outweigh like submitting a bad portfolio? No. I also think they want to see growth too. I think that's, if you're submitting art, you can submit your bad art to a degree just to show how much you've improved over the years. Like, hey, here's what I drew as a little kid at 7 years old. Here's my little kid drawing. And then you can show like, and then at 6th grade, I drew this Dungeons and Dragons thing. I mean, I actually did that. And then, now I'm drawing like this, and I want to draw like that. So, and I need to go to your school because your school is the only one that can help me. So I think that there's a little bit of play in there. Should I ask a professional artist if my portfolio has what it takes before I send it into a studio? That's Damien Mullet. Should I ask if a professional artist if my portfolio has what it takes before I send it to the studio? Let's see. People send me their portfolios, and realistically, I don't tell anyone really not to send a portfolio. I think your best question is, if you have access to a professional artist, Damien, I would say, ask them, what would you do to improve my portfolio, and then execute on that. The reason being is, like, it's not up to me. I don't know all the specifics of where you're going to apply, who might look at it that one day, and I want you guys to all get the jobs. So it's like, I'm not going to tell you not to send your portfolio, because who knows, maybe there's someone walking through that day that just happens to love one weird sketch that you included that I didn't know about, and then that person was like, hire this kid right now, we got it. I wouldn't put myself or one of you guys in the spot of saying like no, but what I would say is, like, if someone said, should I apply, I would say, like, here's what I would do though. I wouldn't even answer. I would say, here's what I would do. I would take this painting and that painting and that painting, and I would put 8 more hours into those paintings each, and then I would send the work in, just to push the portfolio forward. So I would definitely, instead of asking, is your portfolio ready, just say, assume you just send it in anyway. Unless it's terrible, then don't send it in. But if it's barely on the border and you have some confidence in it, send it in. but ask them what you should do to improve it. And then that way they'll give you some actual great data instead of a yes or no question, because they could just say, if you should I send it in? And then they'd be like, nah, or yeah. Well, then what? You didn't get anything out of it. You could milk more information out of them. Right. Justin Adams, send your portfolio to 50 pro artists and you get 49 different responses. All right. So anyone sending your portfolio to me, just want to say, your favorite painting, I want you to put 8 hours more of work into it. Your worst painting, I want you to throw it out of your portfolio. And then before you write back to me, I want you to do 50 pages of cubes. We're good. We're done. We got it. I answered all your portfolio questions. When describing our environmental art, this is from Easterly Art. When describing environmental art, does that lean more towards 3D or is there a balance? I'm still tackling that vocabulary for a better understanding. I think nowadays there's definitely more 3D in environmental art than there used to be. It used to be, it was all hand-drawn, very hand-drawn. A lot of hand-drawn perspective. I think the smart, I don't want to say smartest, but I think most of the very rapid 3D or environment artists are incorporating 3D just to get a sense of depth and to get the camera angle and to get the drama that they want and the lighting that they want, even outside the illustration. Because when I'm setting up an environment and I'm looking through 3D, I'm probably going through 1,000 revs of just like tweaking little things around the camera, changing lights, and that doesn't require a new drawing. And I could even do it with just cubes. And I go, oh, this is a pretty good setup. And then I'll render it out, and then I'll draw over the top of it. And I'm thinking like Ryan Church's, a lot of Ryan Church's stuff is 3D. So even like some of the 2D artists, the best 2D artists, lots of their work is based on 3D. Even in character work, lots of their stuff is 3D. So I would say 3D is a super important skill set right now, for sure. For sure. It's not going to be long before we see 3D as equally as important as drawing skill set. And I can imagine a time when the hand-drawn skill set becomes, falls a little farther off the spectrum than for ideas than 3D itself, just because 3D software is getting so much better and so much more rapid to develop in. So I would say definitely learn those terms. Drawing maniacs, they're when I want to get to Art Center, how long before starting term should I apply? Wait, so when I want to get to Art Center, how long before starting term should I apply? I think, God, I thought I applied like 3 months ahead of time for the term that I wanted to try to get into, and I ended up being like 8 months away from the term that I actually got into. But that was a long time ago. So when you send it in, I think you just send it in. And you should probably call in their office too, their records or admin or student counseling office, and find out. But I want to say that there's kind of some thought about gaming the system, that traditionally I want to say we thought that it was harder to get in for fall term than it was to get in for summer term or spring term. The reason being that most big universities wrapped their year up, or most students wrapped their year up at the end in June, and then they all applied for fall. And then so me not having any university experience before that, I was competing with someone from UCLA on an art scholarship who had drawn nearly professional already. Like, I felt they were almost professional. They're going to apply in fall. And so I believe I applied in, I think I got in on the spring term, and my subjective reasoning was that in spring term there was less competition, and then summer term there's a lot less competition because there's no art classes going on during the summer. No, there are actually. Okay, so summer term was even less competition because everyone had were trying to take their summers off or something. That's my thought on that. Whether that's 100% true or not, I don't know. I would definitely do a little bit of research before I do that. All right. Let me adjust my headset here. And how much high school? Okay, so Keegan Miller. How much should a high school artist wanting to eventually work for a pro studio be drawing per day on average? Okay, so we talked about that a little bit, and there, I've yelled out 10 hours. But when I was in high school, realistically, when I was in high school, I took 2 art classes in high school. So that was 2 hours. I went home and then I drew on my own an hour, maybe 2 hours. And that's when I was drawing. And then usually those 2 hours at home were like for Dungeons and Dragons or something, because we played a lot of games, and in those days you had to draw your own graphics, felt like. So I think early high school I was drawing maybe 3 hours a day, considering 2 were in classes and then 1 or 2 at home. And then later high school, when I started getting into graffiti, I would draw 2 hours a day in classes, and then I would come home and draw 2 hours a day for sure. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe sometimes Thursday, so on school nights then, or when we didn't have school the next day, I would meet with my buddies, and then we would draw like in their living room on sketchbooks for graffiti. So then it would be Fridays we would draw maybe 4 or 5 hours. We spend the whole night drawing and hanging out and like showing each other ideas. And then Saturday and Sunday we would go paint, and we would paint from about 10 a.m. till dark. So that was probably 10 to 5, 10 to 3, depending on how much paint we had. So that would be on Saturday and Sunday. So towards the end there, I was drawing at least 20, 30, at least 30 hours a week, or arting 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week. So that's a little high. And when I say drawing, I just mean draw mode. Like you're in a cafe thinking about drawing. You might be chatting with your friends, hanging out socially, but eventually you've got a pencil on your paper and you're drawing a little something. So that doesn't mean like your hand has to be glued in the act of sketching. That's just, you're in that mindset. You either got books open about how to draw something, and then you're trying to emulate it, or you're on your way to the museum or something like that. So I would say, at least get in that 2 hours a day if you're thinking about doing it professionally. At least, because even you can do an hour at lunch and an hour at home would probably be good. And if you think about like band people, or even someone in the football team, you're basically picking up a sport. It's like those football guys they practice all the time. So if they're practicing for football, that much, you should certainly practice that much for drawing on your free time, right? Okay. Hi Rob, is 2D art still on demand? Should we also have the knowledge on 3D stuff as well? That's from Dennis. I would definitely have both. 2D is definitely in demand, especially because it's the fastest way to get an idea out, and it's how you describe everything. It's when you get into that high-end polish and your texturing and all that, that's when you high-end polish and camera angles, and when you're getting into that peerless type art at the very top few percent of artists, then you're definitely going to have to incorporate some 3D, at least as an underlay, at least to get like your everything dialed in perfectly. So it's, I think nowadays it's safe to say they're hand in hand. You need both of them for sure. And I don't think 2D will ever disappear, because that's the most rapid way to share an idea. But I think the idea of spending months or weeks on a 2D painting will be less attractive than spending months or weeks on a 3D image with 2D painting blending, because on the 3D image then you'll have the assets later on, so that'll become vital if you're in a production for a game, because then those pieces can actually go into the game instead of having to get remodeled because you drew a sketch. So it's a little bit of balance. I think the beginning of production is going to be all sketchy stuff, super fast and super important. But then towards the end, as the quality raises and hooks up, then that's when you're going to want to have some of that 3D, at least knowledge and some skill set for sure. Okay. Atman, hello there, Robert. I have an idea in my mind to create a short but funny story using my art. What kind of jobs would that open up for me? I see, Atman, what I like about that idea is that you're going to basically set yourself up for learning the entire production process. And then I feel like we talked a little bit about millennials in that it's not the olden days where you can just have one little where you can just have like one little vein of information and then you're going to mine all the gold out of this one little skill set. You're going to have a skill set that's super wide. So when you tell your story, you're going to learn storyboarding, editing, storytelling, writing, how to manage a project, how to draw, how to do 3D potentially, how to deliver it on an app, how to set a timeline, how to estimate. All these skills are what's going to be necessary as projects get tighter and more cloud-based and smaller in scope, because the tools are so much better. The point at which we have to have a team of 50 engineers just to get a simple thing done in a game is going to be kind of like something that falls off the radar, I believe. And so I think you're going to have the ability to make your own projects with very few people and not a whole ton of resource. And the idea behind that is to rapidly make something. So keep working that cycle to where you get several projects going, and then each one builds your skill set to the next one. And then eventually, just by sheer brute will, you're going to have a project that shoots through and breaks open and gets wide, and then you're off to the races. That's my thought on those. Let's see, being an aspiring 3D artist, should I strive to draw traditionally weekly, or should I just focus on 3D? Jack Lennon's question. So I think I would definitely sketch in black and white if I was a 3D. If I really wanted to focus on 3D, I would still sketch my ideas in pen and pencil and get some basics in. Certainly people do it without that, but I think you have to think down the road where you're going to try to communicate your ideas to other people rapidly. And hopefully, if you have some aspiration to manage a team or have more people working for you or work in a studio with multiple people, and you're going to be standing in front of a meeting and you're going to have to write on the whiteboard, like, here's the idea, and sketch everything out, or be able to just send an email with a quick sketch on it. Here's how you do it. I want it to look like this. I want the arm to be a little longer. Even when you're painting over something, being able to show someone what the next step is for them, I think that'll be important. So I wouldn't like rule it out. I would definitely rule it in and try to have that rapid visualization process handy. That doesn't mean you have to be a master illustrator by any means. It just means learn it in a way that you can communicate to the people around you very efficiently. Peter Lynn, hi again, Rob. This is a good cheap alternative for Is there a good cheap alternative for ZBrush? I want to start some 3D. Peter, see, I don't even know, because I am stuck in that question too. I have ZBrush and I'm trying to learn it. It's just hard, and the UI is awkward for me. And then I heard there's Mudbox, and I heard there's other things, and I'm just not good. So I don't. You might hit Adam Peterson on Discord. He has done some ZBrushing. Some of those guys took a workshop, I think, and you might hit those guys up. I really don't know, though. Hey, Rob, is it okay for me to ask more than a question? Wait, I hope it's okay to ask more questions. I'm a beginner concept artist, and I wanted to get some money in their pockets. Should they try for a normal job or a random freelance job? Okay, so Dark. So basically that question is, I'm trying to get started, but I need some money. What should I do? So I had the same problem. It's like when I was starting, it's like, how do you pay for your food when you're trying to be a concept artist, but you're not going to be a concept artist until you're a good one? And I think there's little jobs like Facebook logos, little logo jobs, menus, and you can get stuff like that through your buddies or friends, or even on, God, there's some website that has freelance stuff. But I took jobs that were at least pointed towards my art career, very vaguely, like print jobs. And I did engraving, I did some print stuff. I did some painting, house painting. I mean, it's a stretch to call house painting on the way to concept art, but at least I was dealing with color and a paintbrush, right? Honestly, just, I would say take a job that either pays kind of okay to where you can have enough money to push to buy your time to become better, or take a job that you can draw on. So I had a security job where I watched wood piles at night, overnight, because people were stealing wood. So I just had to like park my car and watch this wood so it didn't get stolen. And then I just had a sketchbook and I sketched in my car. So you might think about security. It was a super boring job. But there are a couple of jobs out there. Be creative, I guess. I don't, I kind of feel like it kind of sucks. You just have to burn through and just never lose focus on getting that time to draw your actual art. Let's see. I hear 3D coat is an option, but ZBrush is a pain you may need to go through. Yeah. A ZBrush seems to be the standard right now. So I would bite the bullet and learn that before I learned something weird, and then I couldn't actually apply my skill. So I would say learn ZBrush, and I mean, that's really for all software. Is like ask a bunch of studios, what's your main package, and then learn those. Even though there's opportunity to get something free or something weird, it's like if you go into a studio and you already have their tools down, it's like a big win and a big plus for your portfolio, or at least your letter of intent, or your, when you approach them, that you already know their skills. Keegan, hey again, Rob, sorry for the question, but would you consider art books from games? Would you consider art books from games like the concept art book from Overwatch as a good resource? I'm not gonna lie, I threw most of my books away. They're just a pain in the ass and they're too heavy. So I wouldn't buy any of those books. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I could shine you guys on and say that the books are great. They're too heavy. Who the hell wants a book? And how can you can't even hold it open on my desk? It's like I had a book and then it's like the page flips, someone in the book industry is cursing me right now for saying this. But before you spend like $200 on books, buy a big old monitor, grab all the reference and just put it on the monitor. So I have 2 monitors on this side that I just fill with reference. So instead of having a book, and it's like, okay, I have some really nice books that I do love. I do love some books. I never open them because A, they're super expensive now, and I don't want to spill coffee on them or something like that. And B, I can't just close a window and have them disappear into my folder. So, like I can all my huge reference collection. So as you start building your reference collection, just put them in folders, categorize them if you like. Me, mine's just a crazy person's reference collection. But books, nah. They're no good. They're too heavy. They're heavy. And then you have a bookcase. I used to have 3 bookcases in here because I was so into thinking the books were great. And then I never looked at any of the books because they were a pain in the ass. Just being real. I'm being real. Believe me, that's not what other people think. That's just what I think. There's some book people super salty at me right now. Okay, Dennis, should I start out freelance and get a job at a game dev company? I would take little jobs if you can get them, Dennis. It's hard. It's kind of like just take what you can get, and then when you do get that little job, like knock the crap out of it. Don't just deliver on the value so they hire you again. If you get a job and they don't hire you again, you basically got fired. That's the one thing about a freelancer. That's when you know you did a bad job, is if they don't hire you a second time. And that just because they just didn't think you delivered the value or finished it or did whatever. So just knock it out of the park and deliver the value for sure. And so overestimate how much time it takes, overestimate like the potential cost of it for them. Just so you can do a really good job. They're doing a really good job on whatever opportunity you get is way more important than if it was a freelance or for a studio, because the person on the other end of there is the one person that's going to share your name to the next person. And it's that share right there of like an art director asking another art director like, hey, do you know someone who can make fonts? And then if they think of your name, then that's it. You're off to the races. If they go, yeah, not really, then that's it. You didn't do a good job. So it's cut and dry like that. So just kill whatever opportunity you get. That's the most important thing. Glad I found the scream. I'm glad I found this stream, Renee. And Discord, by the way. Missed your stuff. Yeah, sorry for not getting back on that much faster than usual. But we're here right now. Wow, it's 1:24. What the heck? How long have we been? We're on hour 2 of streaming. Wow. Soldier 76. How do you find motivation to learn art if you're working full time? Is it worth cutting back hours to make time for a future job? So to me, I think one thing you have to, if you're considering art career, is that you just like art as your fun free time. So what is going on? My whole house is rattling now. It could be aliens. So irritating. Huh. Okay, so the like I didn't ever need motivation to do art. So but it was my social, like I explained earlier, it was my social time, it was my fun time. So I always have fun doing art. So for you, I would just say you don't have to carve out time from your job. It's just the other time that you would have done something else, then just make that time for art. It's easy to say, but and maybe not so easy to do, but if you do enjoy it, then it will be less hard than than like having to actually carve it out. You should intrinsically be like into it. Like, fuck, let's get some buddies and draw some Overwatch skins or something like that. That should sound fun to you, hopefully. If you want to be a character artist, it definitely would sound fun. Like, let's draw new guns for Tracer, you know, something like that. I don't know why I keep bringing Tracer up, but I think maybe that's the only one I know her name of. I don't know. There's another character in there too somewhere. Just kidding. Soldier 76 is one. Boom, there you go. So draw a different version, camo outfit or whatever, or Old West style or steampunk version of Soldier 76. Should sound like fun. Right, secret Tracer feelings? I don't know. Confirmed? Unconfirmed? Not sure. Whew. All right, so we have one last thing. Handling rejection. These are our topics. This is our final topic. We'll go over this a little bit, and then you know what time it'll be. What's up, Easy A? It's good to see you. We're on hour 2 right now. So, handling rejection. Honestly, it sucks. In the beginning, there's nothing quite like sending out your portfolio that you're kind of worried about anyway. Let's be honest. Everyone's kind of worried about their portfolio. If they thought it was awesome, they'd already be working, or they'd be an egomaniac. But there's always a little bit of doubt. And then you send it out, and you sniper that portfolio right to the 3 studios that you want to go. And then they either say yes, hope, maybe, like coming for another interview, or they send you a letter like, hey, thanks, we appreciate it, you know, like, keep us informed of your portfolio in the future. We'd love to hear from you in a year or 2, which is kind of a nice way of saying no. Or 3, they don't say anything, which kind of burns my ass too. And I see that on Discord a lot, because we have a lot of people sending out portfolios and they say they never got back to me. If they like you, if they love your portfolio, they get back to you within days, because they don't want someone else. What's up, Sitka? Sadak. If they like you, they get back to you within days, at most weeks, because they think someone else is going to try to snap you up. And more often than not, if they don't like, if your portfolio doesn't even register, they don't even write back, which is freaking annoying. And that probably happens to everyone, myself included. And when I got out of Art Center, I thought I was hot shit out of Art Center, and I sent out 50 portfolios and a bunch of thises and thatses and letters and whatever, and I got 1 call out of all that. And that feeling of like thinking you're a hot shit, and then you get 1 call when you show everything, your reality comes to roost really quickly, and you realize like that Lucasfilms and Blizzard and Jim Henson Studio are not going to fight over me when I graduate. And then you're oh man, yeah, I've had 2 art tests, and then they rejected me at that point. That was painful, dude. Art test, I never had an art test. I don't know if I would do one. That seems like a ton of work and pressure for something that you should already, like, the art director should be able to judge before you even get to an art test. I don't know, maybe not. So the rejection's part of it. And here's what I want to say about rejection. Yes, sometimes your art is not on point. Sometimes it's just not a fit. But that's the key word. Sometimes it's just not a fit, whether it's timing, whether it's the level of art that they need, whether it's the spot. Maybe 3D and they need 2D. Maybe they need a master artist and you're on more of an apprentice level, or you're a medium level artist. Maybe they need someone who's willing to make to be an apprentice, and that they're going to get $10 an hour, and they know you're not going to take a whatever, a giant pay cut just to get into some little studio. So there's all this other stuff behind the scenes other than your actual drawing that you sent that you're very proud of. There's politics in the studio itself. Maybe they put out their job hire notification and they already have internal candidates that they just want to inspire to work harder because they think that there's going to be new people coming. Maybe they're putting out, and this one I've seen a ton, a lot of people just put out freaking we're hiring concept artists just to see what portfolios show up in their inbox, just in case the most amazing concept artist anyone's ever seen lands in there. And it's, you know, Leonardo da Vinci wants to work with us for $17 an hour. Well, let's hire him. That is a lot of those job listings that you see for a long time. That's what those guys are doing. If you see a studio listing their job on Gama Sutra or whatever the job hire sites are, like continually, and you're going, God, I already applied to that, or I know people that applied to that and then no one ever got hired. They're basically fishing for contacts. Or even worse, sometimes I get this, they'll list the job. I've had studios seek me out pretending like they had a job for me, but seeing if they could get a job from me with someone else. It sounds crazy, right? They basically knew that I was working with a studio, but they acted like, hey, do you want to get hired? And I was like, no, I have a job already. And they, oh, you do? Hey, could you talk to this person about our effects company or something and see if they need any work? And I'm like, whoa, that was weird. So just because you sent your portfolio and it means 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10, there is something that you can't control way outside the scope of just being a good artist. It's something probably fairly annoying that would rule you out irregardless. So you can't take that rejection to heart. Then there's the other one spot, the 1 out of 10, where your art does make it through and you're pretty good, and they're just like, there's 4 people here. We just like this one person better than you, but thank you so much. And wow, that hurts. That one really stings because you almost made it. But it's what you do right at that moment that parlays that into your future. Very often, that person who did get the job, a lot of times it don't work out. A lot of times they can't move to a new location. A lot of times they're just not who they said they were, or they don't blend well or mix well. So that doesn't mean things are over. That just means that you have to hustle a little more and get back with the person who almost hired you or did see your work and they did have a comment, and you go, hey, I know I wasn't a fit this moment, but definitely keep my number because, if things change, I want to make sure that I'm on top of the list to be a candidate again. Or if something that there is more of a fit, I want you to know I'm prepared to do what it takes to become a fit or adjust my skill sets. And I would like to update you with new skill sets in 6 months and show some progress. Maybe that would help. So even though that there's a rejection, that just means that there's one barrier. That just because there's a barrier doesn't mean you can't just climb the F over that barrier or plow right through it. That's what you should do. Climb over, plow through, dig under, get through it, and resubmit. Find a way to reapproach the situation because you had this little glimmer of hope, maybe, and you've met someone in the studio, or at least they know your name enough to write you an email, and try to parlay that into something more, like move it forward. So if you get 10 rejections, like in my case, I had 50 rejections or 100 rejections. The ones that did reply that were like, hey, it's not for us right now, but we thought this one was interesting or something, those ones keep their names. And then work on whatever their feedback was, work on it, and then update them in 6 months or 4 months or however long it takes you to do some substantial that they might appreciate, and reapproach them. Those people that still say like it was close, those are awesome connections. That's your strongest connections that you have at that moment until someone actually brings you in. So I don't want you to get disenchanted if someone doesn't like your work. Like the thing about being a concept artist is that they're just concepts. We have a new concept tomorrow. In an hour, I'll have a new concept. Like when you look at my videos, they change. There's like 500 different, each one's a totally different style. The reason is because I have a new concept for a video and I change how it looks. I change whatever. How the titles are, how the tempo is, how the edit is. That's the same with you guys. It's like you make one, that thing should be dead to you and thrown away. When you make a painting, the only reason you have it is to show someone else or maybe get a project going or something. But it's gone because your next one is the good one. So it's not your soul on a piece of paper. And this is what Mr. Solon told me in Art Center when we first started. When we had a bad drawing or something and there's a critique, it's not your soul that's on the paper. It's just what you're capable of on that day at that time with your skill set and with the fundamentals that you had. That if you get rejected, that just means you should empower yourself or have the strength to move forward and try again even harder. And eventually it will work. I promise you it will work if that's your approach, because each drawing should get better and each portfolio piece should get better over time. It's damn easy to say, believe me. Even, if from my position, like, oh, I'm working, I'll tell you guys how freaking easy it is. That's totally easy to say. The reality is, it's one of the hardest things to do is to not be totally heartbroken when someone doesn't like your work, or their first instinct is to tell you how the composition is off or your perspective is off or whatever. No one ever leads with like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And then they tell you your perspective is off after. It just wears on you eventually. And I just don't want it to sink your aspirations, because each drawing gets better over time. So just push through those and realize they're not trying to be mean. They're just looking for the perfect fit for their machine. And each one of us is a totally different fit. Like my skill set is way different than everyone I work with, and my style is way different than their styles. And even on Discord, there are people that I look at and I go, man, this guy would be a fit for this little thing, or that guy would be a fit for that. But there's also guys that I love that I'm like, no way I would put that guy in this chance, because their fit is way different. If a person is really good at graphical type things, that means they're not going to be good at photoreal, whatever, creature design. I'm just pulling random stuff out. But for you guys, don't let the fact that there wasn't a good fit or a perfect fit mean that translating as that you're a bad artist. You're a perfectly fine artist. You're the best artist that you are, and in your path, considering all things, positive or negative or hurdles, you're absolutely in the best spot that you can be for you at your time. And that just means it's a freaking unique situation that you're going to have to seek out with connections to make a perfect match in a studio. And eventually, as your skill set grows and you have more ways to adapt to a studio, then the likelihood of being hired is better. But the reality is, like in my case, I've worked with hundreds and thousands of people in the industry, and really the one job I really wanted to get, it finally just happened like in this last March, right? I'm finally in the studio that I wanted to be in. Pretty much my entire gaming career, so it's kind of like it took a while and I had thousands of connections, right? And I can track the exact person who said the exact right thing to that other person, and this little thread that got me to the studio that I'm at now was super frail, but it was super delicate, and there weren't a lot of fits along the way, but I had just tried so many times. So in your case, don't be frustrated at being rejection or having rejection, 50 times, 100 times. Even at 1,000 and 10,000 times. I had to have been rejected or looked over a million times, it seems like, over the last, oh God, has it been 20 years? 25 years? Yeah. So, it's what you do when you get that rejection. That's what counts. If you crap out and give up and don't be an artist, then you lost. If you get rejected and you figure out like what could you have done a slightly bit better, set yourself up for next time to do a little bit better, then that window of opportunity is going to grow just slightly. And you do that 100 times, it's going to be substantially bigger. You do it 1,000 times, it's going to be way bigger. You do it 10,000 times, and you might even get into the studio that you love. I mean, you might get into the studio that you love the very first time you do it. But that's the likelihood is very hard. It's kind of like scratching off a lottery ticket. So keep that in mind if you feel rejected. And then also jump on Discord, because there's people feeling sad, like, fuck, I didn't get my job, or this person, or whatever. And it's like, we're all going through it. No one's, I would venture to say, like, I don't know a ton of artists that don't have some self-reflection about themselves and their quality and their work, that they don't see a way to improve it or a way to have it be better than it currently is at that very moment. So don't give up, right? And then I think I have a video on that. Don't give up. It's a little sappy, but you'll get it. You understand it. Okay, so last question. Let's see. Saw some, yeah. Renee said, saw some shady stuff from 3D art tests. That burns my hide. Something fierce. Those art tests, I think, if it's a little studio doing that, like, hey, let's get 20 people to do an art test and try to build this little environment. Come on, man. We know what you're doing. That's freaking cheap, dude. That's a bum ass way to treat artists. And if they're doing that, I don't know, send them to me and I will say it right to them. Like, come on, dude. At least if they're going to say do an art test, they better pay you for it, in my opinion. If you're going to spend a full day of doing an art test for them, if you've gone through 1,000 people and you came to 10 people that need to spend a day doing art tests, pay each one of those people 1 day's full wage. Then it's fair, because then you got the art assets at a pay scale. But if you expect them to do it free, dude, that's a bum move. I don't like that. Right? Any suggestions for getting an entry-level internship or entry-level without experience, so that you can get some experience? Right? You can't get a job because you don't have any experience, but you don't have any experience because you don't have a job. I would say, don't wait for other people. Start your own. Get Construct 2 and start your own little project. Build your own little project. That's it. Draw your own little environment. If you're an environment guy, draw your own little character and then animate your own little character. You don't need, this is it. This is the age of new tools. You don't get the Unreal Engine editor and build a world in there. You don't need to wait for someone. Just get your own experience. That's my move. Is that my move? No. But that's the move I would do. Dude, that bums me out about that 3D asset shit. Art test. Come on. Seriously? Laura Tolton. Art tests. I did an art test and they used my storyboards for their game. It was a big company and that just, come on. Just burns my ass. You know what? Did you see that anger? So much angry. I had to take 2 swipes because I missed the first one. That's it. Right? Okay. That was so much rage. I really like how I missed my art, my models. All right. But you know what that means. Is Jeff here? Who knows what that means? Does anyone know what that means? Hulk smash. Dude, I had so much fun with you guys today. Vectrix knows. Right. All right. Last time my voice was a little low to the song, so I'm trying to do it by vision. So let me know if you need to turn up music or microphone. What are we gonna do? Honestly, it is about let's talk about this, the rejection part. I don't care. I honestly, someone who's gonna tell you that you need to get better, blah blah blah, they're just, don't let that get to you. They're not in your shoes. They don't know. They don't know that how much time you have or how much time you have invested in your work. They could go eat a sock. I want you guys to teach them a lesson. If someone tells you like you need to get better or you're not quite there, show them you can get better. Just use that as fuel. That's the fire behind your momentum. Don't let anyone steal the momentum of your art or of your career, of your life. I mean, being an artist for life, it's not work. It's a life without a job. I'm not gonna lie. Like right now, I don't go to work. I go to art. I go to draw. I go to Draw Town and I hang out with concept draw stuff all day, every day. It's not roofing and it's not a real job that is really hard with a lot of work. I get to go to work with the phantoms in my head, the ideas, the crazy moments, and I try to get them on a piece of paper. That's what I want you guys to live with. I want you to live with the characters that you think about at night in the shower, the environments that you think about while you're driving on a long road trip and you don't want to listen to your mom complain about something. You can live in that world. You just have to keep momentum, and you can't let anyone talk you out of doing it. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to hopefully show you the direction that will get you to where you're living with all your favorite ideas. All right, buddies? So, don't set the pencil down today. We'll draw something cool. All right? You have a good one.